Assalamu alaikum. In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to write about line graphs as one of the types you might be asked to write about in task 1 of the academic IELTS. Okay, so in this video, we're going to learn some useful expressions that you can use when you write about line graphs, and at the same time, you can use these expressions in any type in task 1. Let's look at that. Here in this part, what you need to do is to match each line with one of these, each sentence with one of these lines. You may repeat the same line 2 times. So I'll give you some time to think. And then after that, I'm going to show you the answers. Here are the lines. Sales of audio cassettes fell steadily. So which one of them indicate a steady fall? iPod sales rose gradually. Plasma TV sales fluctuated widely. To fluctuate means to go up and down like that. But the trend was upward. So if there's a fluctuation, it means that the line is going up and down. And that if the trend is upward, that means that the first line is, the first point is below the last point. So it's going up and down, up and down, up and down, but the last point is higher than the first point. Here, sales of video cassettes fluctuated wildly and the trend was downward. So that's the opposite, also a fluctuation up and down, but the trend was downward. That means that the first point is higher than the last point. Total digital camera sales dropped slightly. Slightly means a small decrease. Sales of audio cassettes fell and then leveled off. To level off means to stay in the same level. So it's a horizontal level. It's not increasing and at the same time it's not decreasing. The sales of MP3 players rose gradually and then climbed sharply. Purchases of video cassette recorders declined dramatically. Sales of game consoles decreased and then leveled off. We explained the meaning of leveled off before. CD sales dropped suddenly. I'll give you some time to match. You may repeat the same answer. It's okay. Take your time. Pause the video. Okay. Now let's take a look at the answers. Sales of audio cassettes fell steadily, so it says that's supposed to be G or B. Here you can have a steady fall here and also B, but like G is a little bit sharper, slightly sharper than B. In B, you can see that there is a very slight decrease, a slight fall. So it's more appropriate to use G for this sentence. iPod sales rose gradually. So this one, that's a gradual rise. Don't choose this one because this one is a fluctuation. It's going up and down. But this one is a gradual rise. Plasma TV sales fluctuated wildly, but the trend was upward. So it's supposed to be D. That's a fluctuation, as we said, and the trend is upward. Look at the first point. It's below the last point. Sales of video cassettes fluctuated widely and the trend was downward. Here, look at the first point. It's above the last point. So the trend is downward. We use the word trend if there is a fluctuation. If there's no fluctuation, don't use the word trend. Total digital camera sales dropped slightly. So that's B or G. I prefer B for this one because that's a very slight drop. So if you compare B with G, B is very slight, but G is more steady. Sales of audio cassettes fell and then leveled off. Here, as you can see in H, fell and then leveled off, stayed the same. The sales of MP3 players rose gradually and then climbed sharply. So that's F, rose and then climbed sharply. Purchases of video cassette recorders declined dramatically. That's E, declined dramatically. That's a sharp decrease. Sales of video game consoles decreased and then leveled off. Again, decreased and then leveled off. And finally, CD sales dropped suddenly. Again, dropped suddenly. In this exercise, what you need to do is to read the sentences again, but this time all you have to do is to underline all the verbs. That's it, just underline the verbs. Verbs like fill, for example, that's a verb. Underline all the other verbs that were used here. I'll give you some time to think. Okay, here are the answers. So fill, rose, fluctuated, fluctuated again, dropped, fell, leveled, climbed, declined, decreased, leveled, dropped. You need to study these verbs, know what they mean, and then use them when you are writing your own essays. Here in the situation, what you need to do is to underline all the adverbs that were used. This time the adverbs. Adverbs like steadily, that's an adverb. We'll give you some time to think. Now let's take a look at the answers. Sales of audio cassettes fell steadily, gradually, wildly again, slightly. No adverbs here. Gradually, sharply, dramatically, suddenly. Okay, so the adverbs from the previous sentences were steadily, gradually, widely, slightly, sharply, dramatically, suddenly. What you need to do is to classify these adverbs into two groups. One indicates a slow change and the other a fast change. Take some time, think about that. Okay. Slow change would be steadily, gradually, slightly. Fast change, wildly, sharply, dramatically, suddenly. Okay. Now, in this exercise, what you need to do is to decide whether the phrases below mean an upward, downward, or an even trend. So you need to put them in the right categories. A fall, for example, does it mean 1 or 2 or 3? Take your time, put them in the right places, and then I'm going to show you the answers. Okay. Let's take a look at the answers. So all of these words indicate an upward trend: increase, rise, climb, recover, improve. And these words, downward trend: fall, decline, drop, decrease, deteriorate, plummet, and plunge. So both plummet and plunge means a dramatic decrease. To remain steady, a plateau, that's a noun. A plateau means no change. It's not going upwards and it's not going downwards. To level off, that's a verb. So that's a verb and that's a verb, but this one is a noun. Okay, how about this situation? These adjectives describe degrees of change. So what you need to do is to put them in the right place. Here, that's a sharp change, moderate change, slight change. Look at the adjectives and put them in the right places. We may have different opinions in this exercise, of course. Now I'm going to show you the answers. Here in this situation: rapid, sharp, abrupt, dramatic. Gradual and moderate are supposed to go here. Gradual and moderate. You may decide to put significant and marked there, but in my opinion, honestly, they belong here because they don't really indicate a sharp change. If something is significant or marked, it's like a moderate change. And here we have marginal and slight. Okay. In this exercise, what you need to do is to complete the table. We have some descriptions. You need to match descriptions with the correct letter. First, I'm gonna show you the lines that you're supposed to choose from. These are the lines. You may take a screenshot from here or something. These are the lines A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. And here are the descriptions. What you need to do is to match these descriptions with the lines from the previous exercise. If this is confusing for you, you can look at page 81 in the book. It's in the book. The answers are in the book. The question itself is in the book. So look at page 81 and try to match the lines. Yep, yes. Try to match the lines with descriptions. Take your time. It should be like that, but I think this is too small. Yeah, I know this is too small. Yeah, try anyway. So you're supposed to match these lines. Like for example, here the arrow is pointing towards the peak. So search for the correct description that means a peak. And in B, where the arrow is pointing towards this part, and so on. Think and match them with these descriptions, and then I'm going to show you the answers. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. Here, fluctuation is supposed to be D. That's a fluctuation here. Because as I said before, a fluctuation means it's going up and down. Reached a peak, that's A. The arrow is pointing towards the peak. reached a plateau. As we said before, a plateau means no change. It's not going up, but it's not going down. No change. So it's G or H. If you choose G, it's acceptable. Remember that in G, the arrow is pointing towards the part that has a plateau in it. We're not concerned with the fluctuation before the plateau. Or H, all of H is also a plateau. So yeah, but I prefer G first. Remain constant is H. They have the same meaning. There was an upward trend, that's K, upward trend. As we said before, if you have a fluctuation, then we can use the word trend. But if it's just one line without a fluctuation going upwards or going downwards, you don't need to use the word trend. Downward trend, that's F. Fell dramatically, that's L. Dramatic fall in L. Recover dramatically, that's B. Slight decrease, that's C. Slight increase, that's J. I prefer J first. Yeah. Or E also, if you choose E, no problem. A steady decline, that's I. And finally, steady recovery, that's E or G. Okay. Now let's take a look at this exercise. The graph shows the income of 4 cafes in New York over the last year. So we have 4 cafes, the Tea Room, Internet Express, Wi-Fi Cafe, and Cafe Cool. So the Tea Room is this one, that's the Tea Room. Internet Express is this one here. Wi-Fi Cafe, this one. And Cafe Cool, this one. And it's showing the income in thousands of dollars, 20,000, 40,000, 60, 80, and so on. And these are the months of the year: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and so on. Take some time, please. Think first about how you would write an essay here in this situation. As I told you before, you're supposed to start with an introduction. And in this introduction, all you have to do is to paraphrase the question. And then after that, you're going to write an overall paragraph. In the overall paragraph, you need to ask yourself how you're going to classify these 4 variables into groups. We have 4 variables. How many groups can you classify them into? 3, 2, or what? Don't say 1, because if you say 1 group, then this means you're not going to be able to divide them. So we need at least more than 1 group. Don't say 4, because if you say 4 groups, that means you put every variable alone in one group, which doesn't make any sense. You need to find any similarities between the variables and classify them according to that. Let me help you. We talked before in the previous lesson about dividing line graphs into trends, upward or downward. So look at these variables. How many of them have a downward trend, and how many of them have an upward trend? Let's look at the Tea Room first. Does it have a downward trend or an upward trend? Compare between the first point and the last point. First point is higher than the last point. So this is a downward trend. How about Internet Express? Is that an upward trend or a downward trend? First point, 100, last point, almost 130. So it seems that this is an upward trend. Here, Wi-Fi Cafe, upward trend also. That's the last point and that's the first point. Cafe Cool, upward trend. So it seems that we have 2 groups, one for the upward trend and one for the downward trend. How many cafes are we going to put in the upward trend? 1, 2, 3. How many are we going to put in the downward trend? Just 1. So we're going to classify them into 2 groups. One for the downward trend, which is just 1 cafe, and one for the upward trend, which is 3 cafes. You may ask me, is that correct? Can I classify them into 2 groups which don't have equal numbers? 3 in one group and 1 in one group? Yes, that's very acceptable in task 1, no problems. You're gonna have 1 short paragraph for this cafe and 1 long paragraph in which you describe the other 3 cafes. That's acceptable, no problems. So your plan is gonna be like this: an introduction, which is going to be a paraphrase of the question, and then an overall paragraph in which you say that you have 2 trends, and then 2 body paragraphs, one which is very short for the downward cafe, Tea Room, and one which is longer for the other cafes, Internet Express, Wi-Fi Cafe, and Cafe Cool. Let's take a look at this model answer here. The graph provides information about the income trends of 4 cafes over the past 12 months. Overall, the graph indicates that there are 2 basic general trends in the line graph, downwards and upwards. To illustrate, the earnings of the tea room were down over the year, falling significantly from almost $160,000 a month to just under $50,000 in December. In contrast, the income for the other 3 cafes went up by varying degrees. There was a rise in Cafe Cool's sales over the first 10 months, followed by a sudden increase to $120,000. Furthermore, the income of Internet Express and the Wi-Fi Cafe ended the year up in December. The former experienced a steady fall to June, but after that the income rose steadily, ending the year at approximately $130,000. Likewise, between January to July, Wi-Fi Cafe's earnings doubled from $50,000 to nearly $100,000 and then rocketed to around $190,000. That's it. That's your task. And we don't need a closing paragraph. We covered the minimum word count, which is 150 words. Your homework is going to be this one. The graph below shows the consumption of fish and different kinds of meat in a European country between 1979 and 2004. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. That's the task right here. Grams per person per week, 50, 100, 150, 20 to 50, 300. And these are the years, 1979, 84, 89, and so on. And these are the 4 variables: chicken, beef, lamb, and fish. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. Assalamu alaikum.